Alms for Jihad, Chapter 2, Saudi Arabia and its Islamic Charities. If the 1979 Islamic Revolution in Iran didn't shake the Saudi royal family enough, the takeover of the Grand Mosque in Mecca by a group of modest Sunni Muslims shook it to its core. Since then, the royal family has tried its best to keep the details of this attack hidden. However, it is vital if one is to have a full understanding of the working of the Islamic Charities and other organizations since 1979. Saudi Arabia also witnessed the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, and it seemed that the world around, and even within the kingdom, was falling apart. Immediately after the Iranian Revolution, the attack on the shrine in Mecca, and the Soviet invasion, Saudi Charities saw increased support. Saudi funds also went to support Sunni or Wahhabi Muslim communities in the U.S. and Europe. There was also a jump in donations in the form of sadaqah, a free will offering given by a wealthy person that can be used for any cause in Islam, including jihad. This form of giving is also necessarily secret, and therefore impossible to trace. King Fahd of Saudi Arabia supported over 2,000 schools for educating Muslim children in Europe, North America, Australia, and Asia. These schools are explicitly, quote, under the authority and jurisdiction of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, unquote, and are not under any requirement to use the given curriculum of the host country. In Afghanistan, many of the mujahideen, or holy warriors, were Sunni Muslim, and several had come from Saudi Arabia itself to fight the Soviets. By this point, Muslims continually saw more of a global jihad. It was not Afghanistan's war, but a war against Muslims everywhere. By the time the Soviets withdrew, Muslim communities had already established a pattern of giving to charities to support the spread of Islam through resistance movements. The Saudis were being challenged by the fervent Shiite Muslims, and they had to answer with fervor of their own in the form of charitable donations from its vast oil wealth. In the 1990s, Islamic Charities had collected $300 to $500 million, most of it from Saudi charities and private donors. After the World Trade Center bombing of 1993, Saudis were forced to oversee charitable donations. A law was passed that required all charities to deposit donations in a fund administered by a Saudi prince. The law was simply unenforceable for several reasons. The Saudis still saw terrorism as America's problem. Also, it proved too much of a challenge to identify, especially in the 1990s, which charities were supporting legitimate humanitarian causes and which had more sinister plans. After all, Islam draws no distinction between legality and morality, or between the quote secular and the quote religious. It is a social, political, judicial, and religious system with global aspirations. The Saudis themselves admitted that they could not regulate the amount of charitable giving or where the funds were going. The first Saudi charity mentioned in the book is the Red Crescent Society, which was basically the Muslim country's answer to the Red Cross. The Saudi Arabia Red Crescent Society, or SARCS, has been active in Afghanistan, Chechnya, Kosovo, Pakistan, and Palestine since 1980. It provided aid for wounded mujahideen in Afghanistan and supported Palestinian Abdullah Yusuf Azam, who became the, quote, godfather of the Afghan Jihad. He said, quote, jihad and the rifle alone, no negotiations, no conferences, and no dialogues, unquote. Azam created the Mujahideen Services Bureau, known as the MAK, in 1984, which was the foundation for Al-Qaeda, which formed in 1988. Al-Zawahiri, founding member of the Egyptian Islamic Jihad, or EIJ, joined SARCS in 1985 in Peshawar, Pakistan. Later, the Pakistani government had to expel 89 Muslim, quote, relief workers for links to Al-Qaeda. 2 Red Crescent administrators were arrested in 2001 for planning attacks on U.S. and British embassies in Sarajevo and Bosnia. 3 major charities in Saudi Arabia are the World Assembly of Muslim Youth, or WAMY, the Al-Haramain Islamic Foundation, AHIF, and the Muslim World League, MWL, and its offshoot, the International Islamic Relief Organization, IIRO. The Muslim World League, founded in 1962 by Sayyid Ramadan, the, quote, spiritual heir of al-Banna of the Muslim Brotherhood, had by 1970 become one of the largest charities in Saudi Arabia. It claims to be a non-government organization, or NGO, committed to spreading the faith through Wahhabism. After the Soviet invasion of 1979, it, like SARCs, began to support the Mujahideen in Afghanistan and the movement of war materials there. The Saudi royal family is the most substantial and steady donor for the MWL, the Muslim World League. Its own leaders acknowledge receiving support from Saudi contributors, so its status as an NGO is questionable. It's most likely an agency of the Saudi government. In 2002, MWL offered assistance to organizations affiliated with the Council on American Islamic Relations, or CAIR, in the U.S. CAIR is known to bring lawsuits against schools, cities, counties, individuals, and businesses whom it deems threatening to the advance of Islam in the U.S. MAK, the nexus for the movement of jihadists to war in Afghanistan, was founded with funds from the MWL. The MWL also established the International Islamic Relief Organization, IIRO, in 1975 in Mecca, Saudi Arabia. Its mission would be to, quote, provide relief and aid to Muslims as people and groups wherever they are. It has its headquarters in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. The IIRO, in turn, started the Sanabel al-Khair, Seeds of Charity, headquartered in Riyadh, with offices opening in Washington, D.C. in the 1990s. Sanabel raised $1 billion annually for an endowment, with little accountability.